Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Area Sales Manager Bill Bruere from the Central Iowa area joins us with an update on his territory. Bill highlights his experience working with us as an ASM and as a farmer himself. Hear about Bill's innovative practices with Merschman soybeans and wheat on his own farm. Find out what Merschman soybean varieties farmers are growing in Bill's area.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben, Lynn, and Turk, and a special guest. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to Lynn to introduce.
Yeah, so today we're going to go back to our ASM series. So we have Bill Bruere with us, and Bill is located just south of Des Moines for the folks in that area. So Bill, do you want to just give us a little bit of background on your sales area, the locations that you cover, and then we'll go into a little bit about how you got to Merschman Seeds.
Okay, thank you guys. Like you say, we're located south of Des Moines, but I do cover a pretty wide swath. I got north, central, northern Iowa, southern 2 tiers of Minnesota to the south, southwest area. So cover pretty wide swath, a lot of difference in maturities, but learn a lot and then thoroughly enjoy the travels, making it work.
Yeah, so Bill has one of the geographically one of the larger territories, so you definitely get some miles on your vehicle from traveling to and fro.
Yep, that's true. I hope to double them this year, getting new prospects lined up to see, and hope to double them miles this year.
Awesome. So you have a little bit of a unique path to the ASM position. Can you kind of describe how you got here and kind of the life of Bill Bruere, the seedsman as well?
Well, my wife and I have been involved in the seed business our whole career, basically, over 40 years now. I never dreamt I'd be doing this job. We started with Merschman Seed 6 years ago, and the regional guy stopped by one day and said he was going to need to find somebody for northern Iowa to expand the Merschman area to the north, and I jokingly said I could do that job, and I think 2 days later, I was hired. Thoroughly enjoy what I do. I just love going to these small towns, meeting people, meeting new farmers. Every area is slightly different. They all got their different ideas, but we all learn from each other and thoroughly enjoy it. How we got started with Merschman a few years back, well, it was about the time frame we started 6 years ago. We was having trouble with water hemp resistance, and our current program wasn't working for water hemp, the Roundup program. And I knew Merschman had a strong Liberty program, so we got started with the Liberty beans. Our customers didn't jump on board too strong the first year, but we planted 100% Liberty ourselves, and they seen the results of that. So next year, everybody wanted the Liberty, and they've been thoroughly impressed with the quality of Merschman seeds. And every time Merschman makes a move, like from Liberty to the Enlist, they've jumped right on board because they know that they're going to get a quality product and deal with the best company there is out there.
Awesome. So with that to boot, you're also a CCA. How do you feel that distinction helps you in your both the relations with customers and then helping out on making decisions from a seed standpoint and an agronomist standpoint?
Okay, well, honestly, I'm not sure the title has helped me sell a bag of seed, but it has kept me learning through all the years. I forget how long I've been, probably, I know I got a 25-year award maybe 2 or 3 years ago, so probably 27 or 8 years, but that keeps you on top of things, going to meetings to keep up your credits. And I've always enjoyed agronomy and like to learn, and that's a way that forces me to keep learning, which I enjoy it. And I oftentimes even like travel over to Nebraska to their meetings they have and learn different things, different areas, and like to share it with customers. And my customers all know I enjoy agronomy and enjoy helping them whenever I can with that. When we was with the first seed company we started with years ago, they always said I've made a better agronomist than a salesman, but we made it both work. So just enjoy what I do.
That's good. Bill, talk to us just a little bit about last year's growing season and what trials and tribulations as well as what successes did you have last year in your territory?
Well, 2022 was a good year. We were borderline too dry. 21, backing up another year, 21 was the best year we'd ever had in this area, highest yields ever. 22, we had respectable yields for as dry as it was. Many were surprised. Some of my area up, like in the very southwest part of Minnesota, they were almost too wet, though, kind of opposites. And then the central part of Minnesota had perfect conditions, and they had some of the highest yields they'd ever had. So it's just been real variable, but everybody was pleasantly surprised with the yields they had last year for the conditions there was. The trend I seen in our own area this year was last year we were dry, but we had some late rains, and the longer maturity beans had a slight advantage over the early beans. And so we sold more long season beans this year than typical. But I try to get people to plan a package because every year is different. You never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at us.
When you say that, what maturities are you talking about that were slightly advantageous compared to the earliers? What maturity zone are you talking?
Oh, in this area where we're at, south of Des Moines, the McKinley, which is a 3-2, it was the shining star. And it did good the year before too. A lot of our customers have had the highest yields they've ever had on the McKinleys. And so that's probably our biggest seller this year. But up in northern Iowa and southwest Minnesota, I'd say Cheyenne's is probably the shining star up there. It's a 2.0 maturity, and it works real well. Some areas in central Iowa where they got the iron chlorosis problems, we got different varieties that work for that. Probably Chickasaw may be the best one for that, but just try to identify a problem and get them the best bean for the problem they have. And with the new seed treatments that we have now, it's going to put us on top, or we already were on top, and will keep us on top.
What are the, so when you look at from our new seed treatment, two of the big major changes are like the heads up component. As you go to the north, is white mold something that you fight in the southern Minnesota, northern Iowa territory?
Yes, I hear that a lot up, and that's the area where it's the heaviest is in northern Iowa and southwest Minnesota. They have a lot of white mold issues, so they were happy to see the heads up biological added to the seed treatment, and then in central Iowa, there is a lot of nematode problems too. Well, they're everywhere, but they're really heavy there. So the addition of Trementco to the starting line plus will be a big deal to help in those cases, I believe. In our area, the starting line plus to date has made up 70% of our sales, and the starting line straight maybe 25 to 28%. Very few untreated beans anymore. Most people jump right on board with the starting line plus and know the return on the investment's very well going to pay off.
Yeah, one of your customers and one of our seed growers that has been long after the Pekings and has worked with the Iowa Soybean Association is Ron Heck. And he's been a seed grower for us for a
long time,
since the 80s probably. And he was one of the ones that we had conversations with when, he's constantly pushing us to get into that Peking market for that area west of Des Moines because soybean cyst nematode is such a problem. So yeah, it's good to see that we will potentially have products here that will lessen the load or lessen the yield damage that we can see from those soybean cyst nematodes. So rolling into this season, Bill, where are you guys at for planning? What's the last 3 weeks been like? We all had warm conditions in the southern part of Iowa here. How early did guys get started, and kind of where's the crop at right now?
Well, there's a few guys, started before Easter on some beans. Most of them waited till after. Then we had that real warm spell during Easter. William, my son, he started planting corn the 13th April, and I stuck the thermometer in where he was planting one day, and it was 65 degrees at 4 inches. And so that got me a little nervous about the beans, actually, because I knew they could jump right up, and I'm old enough to remember a few frosts in our area in late April, early May, and so I kind of, and our customers too, acknowledge that it might pay not to go full bore on the early beans, but nice to get some out there. And crop insurance did move their dates up in our area till April 10th, so had a little security that way, knowing that if something did go wrong, they would be protected that way. I do think we have a few beans over in western Iowa. Haven't heard for a couple of days that got frosted. I haven't heard if it clear killed them from the guys that planted early there and then had the cold snap. But back to that soil temperature, like I say, we started the 13th, and then they were predicting some rain and cold weather, which had happened. We got about 8/10 here, and the soil temperature dropped down to the mid 40s. So that 13th planted corn, I just drove by it last evening, and you can start to row it in places. It's been that long coming up. But so I think the guys that are got things in this last week will catch up or be even ahead of the ones that planted early. But you got to spread your risks, so you got to start somewhere and do some early and some on the average dates, I believe.
We just started seeing a handful of those guys that planted in that early condition. It seems like the full width tillage guys that are doing, fall deep tillage and then leveling stuff back off in the spring, those guys got away with planting that early. Have you seen any corn replants starting to emerge yet, or is it a little bit too early to tell?
I think it's a little early. I've been encouraging people to not even look here till we see if we get this shower of rain coming through to help, because there is a little bit of a crust. I don't believe there'll be much for replant. What little bit I've seen, it looks like the corn looks good and viable, just slow coming up. I'm hoping there won't be much replant. The only bean replant situations would be if it did get frosted, I believe. And so I think we're looking pretty good that way.
What's the northern part of your territory look like? What do you think the planting progress looks like in northern Iowa, southern Minnesota?
Okay, I texted the two guys up south west Minnesota last evening. They're guessing corn is approximately 70-80% done, but only 10% maybe on beans. They're lagging behind on beans because of the cold temperatures. I know earlier when we started planting, they still had snow in the protected areas and in the ditches, so that's they held off because of the extremely cold temperatures, and they have a later frost date up there in the spring than what we do. But they're coming right along now, and like I say, they'll be wrapping corn up here pretty quick, and the beans will go in pretty quick, I'm sure.
So you are one of our most northern, you have dealers that are part of our most northern fringe of our sales territory. How early of beans do they plant when you're getting into that Minnesota tier?
Well, it varies. There's several of the 1-2 maturity, some 1-6-7s. Like I said, a lot of people are still pushing the 2-0s up there with the Cheyennes because of the yields. They seem like they'll yield anything they put them up against. So they like the Cheyenne, which is a 2-0 maturity. But if we move any further north, I'm sure we're going to have to start looking at the ones in the early ones, and we'll see what happens from there. But I don't know how far the 2-0s can be pushed. I think we're about the limit on that up in Minnesota, the southern two tiers of the state there on the 2-0s.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bill, you are one of the most innovative farmers that I have ever met in my life. What are some of the things that you are doing different this coming year with crop rotation, different products that you're trying? What are some of the things that you're excited about trying new this year?
Well, one thing we did different this year, we tried some Merschman's Ultra Early Wheat. I just thought it was a good way. Down here, a lot of people use cereal rye for ground cover, and I started watching the guys doing this Ultra Early Wheat and thought that's a good way to get the ground cover for these highly erodible soils, and yet have the option to double crop back to beans. So we tried 50 acres. We didn't get it drilled in till the last part of October. It barely greened up before winter set in, but it came on this spring. We got some urea on it. It really looks awesome now, nice dark green. on my bucket list in my younger days as a farmer, I always wanted to go on the wheat run. So I guess now we're going to get to have that dream come true. But I think it's going to have a lot of people looking at it if we get a market for it, because it's just a good way to get ground cover, plus have the double crop option with the high yielding wheat too. And I understand next year you're going to have one that's going to be a little earlier yet, so that could work even better down this way.
Yeah, we're awfully excited about that ultra early line that hopefully will be available for sales, not this year, but the following year once we get seed ramped up on it. So,
and another thing, there's been a lot of people are asking about all the new biologicals and everything. So that's on everybody's mind. People are trying different things and doing different things, and some of them will be right, some of them will be wrong, but we just got to sort through it. And excited about the new Power Core corn that Merschman's going to come out with, give another weed control option, and there again be with world-class genetics, just like the soybeans, and I think farmers will jump on that pretty strong when it gets going here.
So you mentioned the biologicals. On your own farm, are you trying 3 or 4 different biologicals? Do you have any test strips out, or what's your theory when you're out there trying to make decisions? Because that's a hard one for a lot of farmers. I mean, there's a lot of companies pushing it right now.
Well, ourselves, we're not set up on their planter with any starter fertilizer or anything, but we are applying some dry products as we put the seed in the tenders. Terramax has some different inoculants, and then they got some products for corn too, that's supposed to help utilize the nitrogen in the air and that sort of thing. And yeah, they're a good family-owned company up in Minnesota also, and they got good research behind them and proven results. And so we've got some farmers trying that, and some of them will be winners and some of them won't, I'm sure, but we just keep trying everything we can. We do different things on the planter than some. We got row cleaners for 15-inch rows, narrow profile. We don't use colders. Find that we do away with the colders so we get a better seed to soil contact. And we just always try new things, but sometimes it works and sometimes it don't.
You've had experience with the Coulter side of stuff for the first time. It's definitely a learning curve to try to keep that trash out of that furrow and hairpinning, and it definitely takes another management strategy, I guess you'd say, to keep that happening. So, yeah, Bill is definitely one of our most innovative individuals when it comes to the farming aspect. It's kind of ironic. We always talk about our generation is supposed to be the innovators, but Ben and myself are the ones that get text and stuff from Bill hey, you need to check this out. And it's like, man, where are you coming up with this? He's just constantly ahead of the curve on pushing the envelope from both the sales and a farm standpoint. And so appreciate that, Bill. As always, pushing stuff and finding new products. And like Bill mentioned, I think that talc replacement type products are becoming very popular, because now in the sphere, we want every step of the operation to add some kind of value to the farmer. So before, talc was just used as a product to help the operation go smoother. Now we're potentially looking at some ROI returns on it as well.
What's funny about all this planter business, to this day, people think I'm out there in the field planting. I haven't been on a planter in over 15 years. My son does it all. And Kathy and I keep busy with the seed business. To this day, people still call to see if we're going to be around, and we consistently preach we're here 7 days a week, 24 hours a day till planting's done, unless it rains. And I think in over 40 years, we only missed one customer, and that's because it rained and we didn't check to make sure it rained in every area. So we had somebody call us while we were eating out one evening saying they needed seed, but that's a pretty good track record for 40 years. But back to the planting with William, he enjoys, that's his thing. The seed side of things isn't. So a lot of times I refer people to him to ask questions on the planter attachments and that sort of thing. And we just all work together.
That's a good strategy. So we have something that was pretty decent news we'd like to talk about this week. And being an innovator, one of the first text messages you got was from Mr. Bruere himself right there on Bayer's announcement on changing their regional brands a little bit. So, Bill, you have any comments on that?
Well, I seen it. I guess I wasn't surprised because we've seen a lot of these mergers and consolidations take place. I never think it's real good, but the big corporate world seems to think that's what they need to do. So I look at it as an opportunity. We work for a independent, family-owned, American-owned seed business, and we think that's where most people would prefer to be. And so let them consolidate, but we'll welcome new business here.
That's right. Joe, will you give a little bit of background to what happened with what we call the ASI companies?
Well, if you go way back, Monsanto was trying to do a brand strategy where they were buying up a lot of the independent companies to get market share and to bring their Roundup Ready trait to market. So they bought up a lot of brands, and then as time went on, most of you know that all those brands that they had, they start consolidating into one state brand. You know, for example, Kruger is a state brand for Iowa, and Lewis for Missouri, and Stone for Illinois. So, and then now it appears to me that they want to go just to channel and move all those customers into a channel brand, and obviously they got to change their logo, which, you know, that's my big thing. And anytime you have marketing people, the first thing they want to do is change their logo. So anytime we ever change the ad agency, the first thing they want to do is change their logo, because, you know, then it generates a lot of revenue for them, because you got everything they have that got to be replaced, from decals on your truck to stationery. But anyhow, I just think that, just me, my opinion, that this is a cost control issue, and you know, there's been a lot of changes in the landscape on market share for soybean traits, and as you know, and I think it's a cost thing, and I could be wrong, but that's what it appears to me. But it just seems strange that you go out and buy all these brands, and some of these brands have been around for 120 years, and then you throw it away. You know, I never could understand that, but obviously, like Bill says, it's the corporate way. The bigger get bigger, and not necessarily better, but it just appears that's where they're headed. We'll have to wait and see. You know, we're hearing some rumors that some reps are already being asked to leave, and does that mean some dealers are going to be asked to leave? We don't know, but I think your story is the best one that you have about, you know, anytime there's change in this industry. I mean, you know, they always say women are the big gossipers, you know. That's what the men say. But the reality is, I really think the men can outdo them. And tell your story about this one customer that has a state brand and tell that story.
Yeah, Bill. So I've got a former customer of mine, and actually, Ben, you signed him up when you were an ASM. But right before the announcement was made, he was getting a lot more phone calls. And then after the announcement was made, he had 5 different seed companies reach out to him to take on their brand for the coming season. So I called just to make sure everything was all right, but he actually was a little disappointed. He said I was about an hour and a half later than everyone else. So,
and then you know what we equated that to, Bill, which is kind of it's ironic. I wouldn't call it funny, but it's ironic. But you know, when the farmer that's been farming his whole life passes away, and he farms a lot of ground, and the widow, you know, the funeral's not even completed yet, but you start getting farmers calling and say, hey, if you need help to rent that ground out, I'd be glad to help you out there. And I was telling Lynn, that's the same thing. You know, nobody even knows what's going to happen to these brands, and other seed companies are calling and saying, hey, we can rent the ground for you, help you out by offering a dealership. But anyhow, yeah, it's constant change in this industry. You know, it's one of the few industries, in my opinion, that farmers have a lot of fun with, because the average farmer gets about 6 seed companies calling on them, 6 different brands, and so they have a lot. We call it the winter sport, is to harass the seed guy, you know, and so they still have a lot of choices. And you go in a lot of other industries, you don't have that many choices. It's getting down to 2, And if we get down to two choices, I can tell you that, prices will be higher. I mean, there's just no way around it. But there's a lot of competition in the seed industry. I mean, every day we get up and we roll up our sleeves because we know we got somebody that wants to take our business. So you've got to always be moving forward. You got to be innovative. You got to be looking for the next opportunity. And that's what we do here at Merschman Seeds. Obviously we're conscious of cost, but we focus more on the product than we do and figure out how to do it in an efficient manner. Just like every farmer, I don't think a farmer sits around every year and says, how much can I slash out of my business? He knows that the fastest way to lower his cost is to raise more bushels per acre. If you can get 240 bushel corn rather than 200, that's going to be much better than saving $10 an acre.
Couldn't agree more.
On that note, we can honestly say in our area, people don't even ask the price of Merschman seed anymore. They just know they're going to get a quality product at a fair price, and it's an easy sell. They just wonder how much they need to write the check for, and because they know they're going to get that quality product.
Well, Bill, there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if it's the right time to bring it up, but I know you talked about your son and Kathy, your wife, how important they are to your operation, but you actually have two other folks in your operation that I think are actually the brains of the operation, and that is your two scout dogs that you have, because you're on Twitter, and it appears to me every time I look at a tweet from Bill Bruere, and it's Corny Farmer? Is that your, yeah, Corny Farmer, if you want to follow him. But the scout hounds are the ones that are doing all the work, from what I can tell, because they're usually in the back of your side-by-side, and you're usually out in the fields, and you're looking things over, and they're the ones that are telling everybody what they need to be doing with their crops. Is that not true, Bill?
No, that's true. And they actually got one of my new salesmen up in Minnesota a couple years ago. The wife had her husband call the guy that had the scout hounds to see what he had to do to be a Merschman dealer. And so I owe them a lot of my success. I can't go anywhere but what somebody don't know those scout hounds. And they were singing the choir out here in the yard this morning when we first started. I'm glad it didn't pick up the noise. There was a customer picking up seed, and he had his dog, and they don't especially care for that because Kathy shares their meatballs with them. But they're a lot of fun. People enjoy what I do with them. So yeah, I would encourage people to look at Corny Farmer if they want to see what's going on Twitter.
Yeah, there are a couple of Basset hounds, and Bill always makes his point by letting the dogs do the talking, and it's always entertaining and informative. And I never miss one of Bill's tweets on Twitter, because you're always going to learn something, plus you're going to get a smile out of it.
Bill, is there anything else you want to cover on before we roll this thing out?
No, I don't believe so. I just want to thank all you guys for the good service, and our customers appreciate what you do, and it's nice dealing with a family-owned independent American seed company. And like I tell people, they could pick up the phone and call any one of you guys in the office today, and you would talk to them. And that's one thing you probably don't get from the corporate world. So just appreciate everybody's business that does listen to this, and we'll always entertain more business. So thanks a lot.
Well, you may be appreciative now, but you haven't had to stick around for the corny joke. So
you might change your mind. That's right. But I did want to add one other point, that Bill's wife, Kathy, she just about caused a riot this week in our office. I don't know if you knew that. You guys were out planting plots, but she sent a box of cookies that she made. And, there wasn't that many, so, boy, there was a mad rush to get them, and they were really, really good. Be sure to tell Kathy we appreciate her cookies, and I know Bill, a couple times a year, will send cookies down to the office. And I can tell you that if you want to get people around here excited, you give them food. I mean, there's just something about food. And Bill, you and Kathy have always been good to us, too. So in business, it always has to be a two-way street. I don't care what it is. Both sides got to win, and Bill, you do a great job for us, and we appreciate all that you do. So here's the corny jokes. Now, this one here, I stepped outside and I got two of the highest authorities out there to help me with it. And one of them, the highest authority is Joe Sinclair from Quality Ag Service out of Albee, Iowa. But the other, where he went to, was even higher authority. He went to his St. Mary's Church Bulletin and passed them on to me. So we'll see how this goes, okay? So I don't think I can get in too much trouble this week. All right, this one here is, I entered 10 puns into a contest to see which would win. No pun intended. Okay. That's pretty corny. Mm-hmm. Okay, last one. How do you measure a snake? You measure it in inches. They don't have feet. Well, thanks, Joe. Well, I'll let you close it up then.
Well, Bill, we appreciate you coming on here today, and it's always informative when we get together and talk with you. And yeah, folks, if you want to find a good laugh and find some information on ag and be in the know, definitely give Bill a follow on Twitter at The Corny Farmer. And for everyone here today, we appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate your business, and have a good weekend.